Hello, my amazing fourth graders. It's Mr. Turbain here for lesson 7.8. Your objective is I will rename a number to subtract mixed numbers. So, in lesson 7.6, you learned how to rename numbers from mixed numbers to improper fractions. We're going to do that a little bit today. You also, in lesson 7.7, learned how to add and subtract mixed numbers. Now, those were nice and pretty. These are going to involve a little bit of regrouping and renaming, okay? They're not as pretty. So before we get into subtracting mixed numbers, let's go over how we rename whenever we subtract. Now, this is something that I had noticed a lot of fourth graders forget to do when they're subtracting whole numbers like 472 minus 256. You start with the smallest place value. Right here, it's the ones place. And 2 minus 6. You can't do that because if you have $2, you cannot buy something that is $6. Lucky for us, we have $472. So we need to regroup from the tens. 110 from 7 tens is 6 tens. And then we have 10 plus 2, which gives us 12. So we are able to then find our difference because we can take 12 minus 6, which is 6, 6 minus 5, which is 1, and 4 minus 2, which is 2. Okay, this is very, very important. So how do we rename mixed numbers to subtract?
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Sorry, Siri wanted to join the lesson, so that's why she was listening. So what do you notice about these mixed numbers right here? Hopefully you notice that 1/3 you cannot subtract 2/3 from, okay? So we're going to have to do the same thing that we did whenever we were subtracting whole numbers. We're going to have to regroup one whole, and then we're going to add that in fraction form. So now it becomes 2 and 1/3 plus 3/3 is 4/3. Now we can subtract 2 and 4/3 minus 2 and 2/3. But wait, Mr. Torbain, you told me not to do this. I did. But to help us when we subtract, it's okay, as long as your final difference isn't improper with a whole number. So 2 and 4/3 minus 2 and 2/3. Well, we know how to subtract this. We start with the smallest place value with the fraction. We take 4/3 minus 2/3, and that gives us 2/3. Then we take our whole numbers, 2 minus 2, which is 0. So 2 and 4/3 minus 2 and 2/3 is just 2/3. In other words, 3 and 1/3 minus 2 and 2/3 is just 2/3. You have done so well. I know your mama would be proud of you. Let's take a look at an example from your GoMath workbook. I am on page 431. The instructions read, find the difference. Let's take a look at example number 3. We want to find the difference of 4 and 7/10 minus 1 and 9/10. Okay? Now, hopefully you've noticed that you can't subtract 7/10 minus 9/10 because this is a smaller fraction than 9/10. So we're going to need to rename this mixed number. How do we do that? Well, let's regroup one whole from our whole number. 4 minus 1 whole is 3. And let's add one whole, but in fraction form. Again, I've said this 100 times. I'll say it 100 more. One whole in fraction form has the same numerator and denominator. Okay? So what that becomes, that number becomes 3. And now we can add our fraction. 7/10 plus 10/10 is 17/10. That is okay for now. Even though it has an improper fraction, it's okay just for now. And we want to subtract 1 and 9/10. Okay? Now we can subtract like we've been doing. We take the fraction 17/10 minus 9/10, which gives us 8/10. And then we subtract our whole numbers. 3 minus 1 is 2. So 4 and 7/10 minus 1 and 9/10, the difference is 2 and 8/10.